Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, colleagues, and friends. It's a pleasure to welcome you to this important session, part of the second edition of the Hili Forum under our third and final pillar of discussion, Geotech, where we explore the deep interlinkages between emerging technologies and the shifting dynamics of global power. Our session today is titled UAE Tech, New Technologies Reshaping the Balance of Power. In recent years, we've witnessed how technology is no longer just a tool of progress. It's a strategic asset, a diplomatic tool, and at times, even a battleground. Here in the UAE, we are not simply consumers of global innovation. We are positioning ourselves as designers, investors, and regulators of frontier technologies, from AI and quantum computing to space exploration, biotech, and cybersecurity. But as we gain momentum, important questions emerge. How does this technological rise alter the balance of power? What opportunities does it open, and what risks does it expose? And how does the UAE navigate its role between digital sovereignty and global tech interdependence? To explore these critical questions, we are joined by a distinguished panel of thought leaders and experts who each bring a unique lens to this conversation. On my right, we are honored to have His Excellency Dr. Nasser Nuaimi, the Secretary General of Tawazun Council. And here we have Professor Dr. Hoda Khzaimi, Associate Vice Provost of Research, Translation and Innovation at New York University. And we have also Dr. Yuliya, Tarabalka, Vice President of Geospatial Solutions at Space 42. And last but not least, Mr. Mohammed, Soliman, who is a Senior Fellow at the Middle East Institute in Washington, D.C. I promise to keep this session interactive and engaging, and I encourage the audience to engage and ask questions through the QR code. I'll be delivering some of these questions directly to our speakers. Your Excellency, I'll start with you. As technology reshapes modern life and expands the domain of warfare, how can the UAE, as an emerging digital powerhouse, harness advanced technologies?
Well, thank you, Khamis, and thank you everybody for being here. Thank you all. Let me first start by saying thanks to the Gargash Academy, the Anwar Gargash Academy, and to the ESSR for arranging this forum. Definitely, this is a platform where we can share information and get in touch. So I thank you personally, and thanks all the teams that went behind this successful event. Let me, to the audience and to myself as well, remind myself of the basics of where this discussions or forums are going to take us. Let me set the grounds. I believe that technology today is no longer an isolated sector. It's integrated and entwines in every aspect of life. From how we communicate, to how we trade, to how we safeguard our nations, technology is always nowadays present. Some call it the invisible infrastructure. So today technology is that invisible infrastructure upon which we build all of our resources and capabilities. Defense, having said that, defense, of course, is not an exception, and mainly for two reasons. Number one, what have started historically as the basic three domains of war fightings or warfares, that is land, sea, and air, is now expanding to include cyberspace and outer space. So we have an additional two domains that are heavily invested into technology. So that's one factor why this is really related to defense. The second factor is the fact that even classical defense capability, that is land, sea, and air, are being transformed by technology. So they are retrofitted with technological capability so that they're becoming better when it comes to performance, enhancing performance, integrating smart functions, and providing seamless communications. a tank today is not like a tank 20 or 30 years ago. Having said that, also an aircraft today is not just purely about speed and maneuverability. Aircrafts today are being fitted with data links, with smart functions, with AI-enabled decision making. Dear audience, that sets the ground, that sets the floor for the discussions. I believe this evolution, Khamis, in answer to your question, is actually no longer measured just by military asset. UAE capability, UAE ability to defend itself is not just based on physical capability, but also by the ownership of data, algorithms, data flows and centers and platforms. This is exactly why in the UAE we're looking at an opportunity whereby the UAE is developing its digital powerhouse not just as an economic driver, but as a strategic shift. Having said all that, I want to emphasize the fact that the trend today of evolving military, physical, traditional assets into technology is an advancement that we are investing in heavily.
Building on what you've said, Your Excellency, the UAE is transferring from an oil economy into a diversified economy.
Right.
And we think that exactly the UAE wants to be a tech economy, build a tech economy that competes globally. So Professor Hoda, what do you think is the elements that would enable the UAE to be a global tech economy?
That's a very critical question, Khamis, and I think the proper response here goes to how UAE positioned itself in the past 50 years. UAE, not just an economic driver for itself, but also for the region and for over 80 different countries around the world, because of its positioning as an economic development partner for those countries. UAE has a sense of strategic agency and neutrality structure that exists in a very unique way to diffuse conflict across borders. Now, if we brought this on the table with the ability of UAE of developing technology, in today's economic narrative, we try to evaluate technology development or the criticality of who is the top contender when it comes to building technology to people who are developing the technology. But that's not the case anymore. Countries like UAE changed that narrative to bring a force of importance to deployment use cases. In AI, for example, and other emerging technology components like quantum computing, UAE is leading and providing global sandboxes and global regulatory structures where countries can learn and info share and get to understand how to scale up this technology across borders. So we see this value being magnified today, where UAE goes to countries across border who cannot afford developing this technology and help them co-develop the technology structure so they can, be on the same structure of global competitiveness. They're doing it to countries in Central Europe, they're doing it to countries in Africa and other parts of the world. If there is today a country that has the ability of connecting one of the global continents around the world on satellite connections, it's UAE. It's not the top contenders who are developing a new satellite communication. So I would say we, as a growing nation in this field, we bring a lot on the table in terms of providing agency structure and neutrality structure to open the technology box, not to just development competitive structure that's happening globally, for example, in the United States or in China, but understanding the deep layers that exist around how can we co-develop technologies and provide R&D pipelines to countries around the world.
Thank you, Professor Hoda. Dr. Yuliya, I think that you can bring into the table an example, which is MAP Africa Initiative enabled by your company, Space 42, which is an example of how the UAE is, our UAE company is working abroad to bring up technologies to emerging and developing economies.
Absolutely. Dear moderator, dear speakers, dear all, first of all, I really appreciate and delighted to be part of this panel, and I am happy today to share my technical experience and expertise as tech lead. So I'm leading a team in developing geospatial solutions, and I'm very proud to share some insights about Map Africa initiative that we are actively building in partnership with S3 and Microsoft companies. This is very wonderful example how we really unify synergies of different companies and different nations, right? So we use our skills, our local talents to build here in UAE interesting models, and then we scale globally. And so today we are developing Map Africa project, which means to build high precision and up-to-date maps over 54 countries in Africa, so which concerns more than 1 billion, so 1.4 billion people in Africa. And these maps are not just background visuals. They are powerful tools which serve, I mean, that's why we talk about like Geo, which serves to solve real applications. And it will really help to tackle very important human problems. Like we want to tackle water scarcity, right? And we will do our best to help to deliver water. It can help to deliver medical supplies. So if you have efficient new maps, so we can improve infrastructure, we can tackle agriculture, of course, disaster management, etc. And then this initiative, it's not even a project, it's beyond that. So because we are not just delivering maps, there are different pillars in that initiative. So first, we are delivering those high resolution maps. Second, we are building capability to very fast create a new updated map over any region in the world. And this is really we at the right moment, at the right place, because with right technology now, we are able to do it with AI. So like, let's say 50 years ago, it was not possible to do it. So third, in this initiative, so we will not only build maps, but also we will build applications that serve people, right, like agriculture, disaster management, and also both Emirati and African startups will be created. So we will create the whole pipeline, right, from space data acquisition to, of course, processing, advanced processing, and all the way to startups and final applications that serve real needs. And so we will also create 4 excellence centers, and we'll train people in Africa to understand the real value, right, of what we are bringing, and the real value of those applications, and how it can really improve their lives.
Thank you, Dr. Yuliya. Mr. Mohammed Soliman, you and I, we both come from the think tank industry, and I know that you are a big-time advocate of the partnership between the US and the Gulf in AI and advanced technologies. How do you usually respond to the critiques of this partnership?
The funny story, I'm an engineer and we still not really get tech right. Let me start by saying that thank you to the Hili team for hosting us here. Really appreciate the opportunity to be back in the UAE. And to your point, the reason why I think this UAE-US AI partnership is extremely important for the United States and the UAE and for emerging markets is for a very simple fact. We have what I call compute deficit. What's compute? It is the integrated infrastructure system that enables AI. So people always think of AI as a bunch of algorithms. I don't believe that this is true. I'm a trained engineer. I believe in AI as infrastructure. So those are ships, data centers, and energy. So the reason why the UAE has positioned itself as a major node in this AI ecosystem globally is the question of, do you believe energy is the main bottleneck for AI, yes or no? And the answer is yes. So why the United States needs the UAE? The United States needs the UAE because we have a lot of markets outside of the United States the United States cannot really serve. So how can you serve emerging markets in Africa, in Southeast Asia, in South Asia? You need to rely on a partner, trusted, like the UAE, that can fill that gap. So far, let me give a brief about what's the compute map. The compute map is the United States has 75%, the Chinese have about 15%. The United States, until today, for us to keep up with this compute progression inside the United States, our electricity grid should move from 3% for data centers today to 8% in 2028. So clearly we don't really have the capacity to serve those emerging markets. So this is where the UAE came forward and like, let's think about how to make a framework for this sort of compute partnership. To the core of your question, which is there are critics, right? And the reason why there are criticism of this sort of deal in Washington is a few things. One, we have a very dominant view in Washington that AI is like a nuclear weapon. That AI is a major strategic asset, and we have to limit which countries that have to access to the sort of strategic asset. So when you're thinking within that sort of frame, any country should be questioned if they are going to have any access to compute. And the reason why I think right now in Washington the mood has changed a bit towards this sort of partnership is you see the Chinese much more open about those sort of compute partnerships in Malaysia, in Southeast Asia, and now they're pivoting to Africa. They are trying to ramp up their ships. So it's either us going to be working with the countries like the UAE, have of course shared security protocols, making sure that everything is going according to the legal guardrails that we have in Washington. Other than that, I think it's net positive for the United States and more importantly for the UAE as a back end for AI compute for emerging markets.
Thank you, Mr. Mohammed Soliman. Your Excellency, back to you. Regarding the private-public partnership in the UAE, how can this partnership enable the transformation from an oil-dependent economy into a tech economy?
Well, I could refer back to Dr. Hoda if you want to touch on the same question again. Well, I mean, I could cover my side if you want, but I want to follow the thread that Mohammed just said now on the importance of the of AI or technology. As we said, everybody knows that energy security was the driver for the 20th century. Cybersecurity and information technology is going to be would shape the 21st century. That's really very important to understand and say. As just now Mohammed said about ownership, the fields are not flat. They're not equal. Big powers like United States and China and other big powers they do have a privilege in because they've been there before us. However, having said that, there's always an opportunity for countries like the UAE to also come on board. In addition to the initiatives that we're currently working on with the United States. But there are, to your question, Khamis, there are concerns that within the defense ecosystem that we always think about. One is the sovereignty of the technology. It's very important that we also have regulation around sovereignty, because strategic power with technology can be hurt if you don't have enough sovereignty on the technologies. So that is really very important. Whoever owns the platforms, the AI, the data flows, for you said, Mohammed, would actually owns influence. And that's really important again. In the UAE, we're determined to reduce critical dependencies. We want to build what it takes within the country so that we can own sovereignty around it. So we're building data centers. We're trying to build resistance or cloud infrastructure that are resistant to disturbances, and also develop indigenous IPs for programming and softwares and AI codes. The aim in the UAE, Khamis, to your question, is very clear. The aim in the UAE is that we need to position the UAE on that map of the AI and technology. And to do so, we're united not only with the private sector, but also with the institutions, with the academias, the academic institutions. And we truly believe that is a very much a way forward. So in addition to the government side, there is that tri-side, which is the private sector and the academia. That, having said that, that also drives another important factor, Khamis and dear audience, which is the standardization. It's not enough to continuously innovate. We need to put down standards that would also regulate and govern the way we use technology. Standards is a bigger umbrella. It could also include the ethical standards, which is something which is a very important part of standardization that everybody is talking about. We do need to have that in place. It's not just about the ability to innovate, Dr. Hoda. It's the ability to be enduring. And to be enduring, you gotta have standards in place. So that's the second part. The third part, I wanna say, that competitiveness, it's good to encourage competitiveness in innovation, but it's also very important to align that competitiveness, that products that we're about to produce with the national objectives. So we at Tawazun Council for Defense Enablement, working with our stakeholders to align the innovation with the objectives, with the national objectives of the United Arab Emirates. I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Excellency. Professor?
Just if I can jump in and give a successful example of public-private partnership. We've also heard this morning the importance of this triangle. I mean, first example is we are round table, right? Indeed, government, academia, and private, and we really feel the importance, right, of discussing together. And so at Space 42, it's a company, we do have a successful public-private partnership with UAE Space Agency, and it really drives innovation forward. So as you just mentioned, that government has, of course, important needs, right, and we need some sovereign solutions to satisfy those needs. And in the same time, a private company understands and studies market and drives innovation. So if you want to be highly innovative, government helps to share risks, right, and to really create innovative solutions. So we have a partnership on developing a GAQ, Geospatial Intelligence Platform. So this platform is designed to convert data acquired by all different kinds of satellites into actionable insights, ready for helping decision making with very low latency, so basically, right, very fast. And so one of objectives we had in this country, so we wanted to bring to both government and private sector possibility of acquire satellite data from all different satellites, right, national and international. And so we did it in our GQ platform. Second, so we do develop AI models, AI solutions, and we put it in that platform. But beyond that, we also propose on one side the user possibility to develop its own models. So we also heard this morning about no code, low code. So in that platform, we created possibility for the user to go and to develop solutions which are suited for his need with no line of code and very fast in a simple, intuitive way. And also we give possibility other companies to put solutions in the marketplace, right? To put solution in our platform. So to do this, actually, we of course need to follow really important rules, right? So we follow standards and we make our system very modular with basically all relevant protocols. So this platform, we are proud to share that we recently got Future Fit Seal Award, which is a recognition, government recognition for readiness of the platform to use and for its long-lasting impact value. Just very quick other part of that partnership with Space Agency. So we feel importance not only develop, but of course develop with purpose, but also we need to train local talent, right? So we need to train future engineers and future leaders. And already it's been second time that we have successfully conducted space training, so Space Academy program for Earth observation applications. So this program means to take talented Emiratis and to train them, and training meaning not only just studying, right, like in the old school, but we really like make ideation. We put them through the whole pipeline of creation of projects so that at the end they come up in 10 weeks with real solutions ready to deploy. And it was very interesting to see the outcome of that training program, which is interesting. So we know that over 70% of alumni of the first cohort do work already for shaping space future in the country. And we are very proud of this achievement.
Thank you, Professor Yuliya. Dr. Hoda, you have an intervention.
I think what I can reflect on, Your Excellency, for the past, and Yuliya and Mohammed, for the past 20 years I worked in UAE R&D, and what signifies the R&D structures in UAE across different platforms is that it brings a full powerhouse structures when it comes. So we diversify our investments in R&D. We don't just invest in localizing R&D structures, but also on global assets. In a global economy where tensions in between how we develop and where we develop technology is one of the core conversation on the table. UAE has always been a champion for global industry, not just local industry, by supporting financial structures across board, their investments in SoftBank, where SoftBank as well invested in different entrepreneurial structures and different R&Ds around the world, and that they were the silver bullet that saved many kind of small unicorns that were growing at that point of time. So I would say UAE is a big contender on securing the value chain of building innovation and in this century and in the next centuries, because we don't just aim to build locally for local kind of capacities and priorities, but also for global priorities. And we are reshaping global priorities by saying that, yes, we will develop for the national security priorities, dual use and other structures, but at the same time, we want to change how technology is changing people's lives. The conversation on the table in UAE where we talked about how can we build the next generation of energy innovation that is about saving water systems in different regions. Maybe, we work with UAE scientists today to build dual reactors for energy that can both generate energy from different minerals than the current stack of minerals that exist globally, because they think that that type of mineral could exist in water scarce areas around the world. And this type of small but powerful innovation is critical, because we don't want to just ride the current wave of technology. Whatever everybody is developing, and when it comes to AI and data center, we'll go with that. No, we want to also redefine the next wave, because we are very mindful of the blind spots. We know exactly that there are over 200 kind of emerging deep technologies being developed globally, and competition is not anymore, as you said, Your Excellency, for first entry advantages, but it's also for who is aiming for wider deployment across different regions, across different jurisdictions, who is bringing more purposeful, I would say, use cases on the table on the global agenda. From the 1,500 global unicorns that control over 4.3 trillion USDs, UAE is number 17th globally with 11 unicorns. So it means with our small, powerful structure that we have built, we're building a pathway where our kind of technology being developed on local houses here can change the world. What I think we should work on today is how can we build for faster commercialization, honestly. We should use this kind of public-private, the whole of society kind of partnerships to bring faster pathways to commercialization for companies, for those leaders, Yuliya, you talked about in your Space Academy. I think this is one of the, if not the 3% of global scenarios that we're seeing in your platform. It would be interesting to see how many ventures can stem out of this that can change the public narrative of how we build space technology tomorrow. So I would leave it to that for this point. Thank you, Khamis.
Thank you, Professor Hoda. Back to Mr. Mohammed Soliman. The question about the U.S. Politics, U.S. domestic politics, and its positioning towards the partnership, the growing partnership actually in tech, particularly between the US and the Gulf countries. How can the Gulf countries in general and the UAE in particular sustain and keep up its partnership with the US and AI and advanced technology, regardless of changing administrations, changing people, and the other things in Washington, D.C.?
That's not really an easy question. It's unfair. A few things. One, I think when we're talking about an AI partnership, this is a long-term commitment in the relationship, right? Regardless of who is going to be in the White House 2028 or 2032, it doesn't really matter. It's going to be a long-term commitment. And the reason why it's a long-term commitment because it has a commercial incentive. It has big corporations putting a lot of capital investment, upfronting this capital for this major infrastructure. The second thing to your question about how to sustain that, it means you need to create new venues for those sort of cooperation. And this is where I think about AI as an opportunity for Gulf, US, UAE, US partnership in third markets. This is basically the unique position for the UAE and the Gulf. Number one, part of it is there's a gap, there's a compute gap. No one is going to fill this. No one really is going to go build a big AI cluster in Kenya. Only it was G42 Microsoft partnership that went there and said, we're going to offer you an innovation hub that's fully integrated with energy source, right? So can you replicate that with other emerging markets that are important? Of course, there should be a commercial incentive, right? This is not really for charity. But also there is the idea of, can you fund that sort of capital? Can you bring all of this know-how and technical expertise and your own solutions to a certain market? So this is where I see the UAE in. The third thing is you need to build your own interlinked partnerships and build an order around that. And you see this somehow with the G42 MGX partnerships, right? So a supercomputer in Italy, or the investment in Mistral AI in France, or I know that there's something taking place in Greece, or you're doing a Hindi LLM out of Abu Dhabi. So you're somehow cohering an AI system that's centered around the UAE. And another thing that's important, we also need to think about the Gulf as an AI cluster, as an AI region. I think so far, I don't believe that this is the case. Hopefully this is down the line. So what I mean by that, you need to think about a GCC AI stack, meaning can you build an integrated electricity system that basically translates into compute pooling for all these services that will help you with third markets. Second, should you think about the deployment of capital, which is extremely important in terms of global AI labs, but also local AI labs that we need. Three, it's basically the education talent, right? You need to make sure that you have AI scientists. One of the biggest stories that we have in Washington right now, how many billions of dollars we spend on AI scientists as a total salary package. So this is another aspect of it. And the final thing here that I will end on is, I don't believe that the AI race is a zero-sum game, right? There's going to be a lot of winners here. There's going to be a lot of upsides. I don't think we have seen what exactly we're dealing with here, right? There's going to be a lot of upside. I don't think the old paradigms around AI are going to be valid. I think we need to make sure that we believe that there's going to be a next wave of innovation right after AGI or supercomputers, whatever you're going to describe this current wave. And I believe that the UAE is very much well positioned to play that sort of role.
Mr. Mohammed Soliman, I think that's the time now for addressing the questions of the audience. I have a question from Mr. Andras Volum. The question says, how can the UAE maintain its tech neutrality amidst an increasingly polarized world order? Your Excellency.
I think UAE is already doing this by design, and it's with the DNA structure of UAE. Neutrality is preserved by making sure that access to compute and access not just to AI stack, because UAE has never been about singular investment. It's about deep tech and also emerging technology structure investments, the whole stack structure. You could see it in the way UAE is supporting economic development and reshaping what does economic international collaboration means. UAE is in Ethiopia making sure that they are tech ready when it comes to their smart grid structuring and their smart city initiatives. UAE and other countries like Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, making sure that they are digitalizing their services and they are being brought into the DPI structure, the digital public infrastructure platforms. When it comes to the AI compute structure that you just described, Mohammed, and other type of structures, from the get-go, UAE is building different campuses, even prior to the collaboration with the United States. The different sandboxes that UAE built globally with the World Economic Forum here in UAE to build a global regulatory box when it comes to not just talking about thought leadership or policy structure, but actually actioning those from UAE to the world. We've seen UAE formerly building energy solutions with different countries in Africa, with different countries as well around the world, and exporting these technologies to different nations in the world. So I would say the neutrality structure is being preserved by the identity structure of how UAE is trying not to polarize the conversation on the table and make sure that democratizing access to technology development and technology investment is an actual ground of execution rather than just a conversation on the agenda.
Great answer, Professor Hoda. I have another question from someone from the audience. I think it's directed to you, Dr. Yuliya. Which countries are the primary focus of the Africa Map initiative, and how is this initiative linked to the to other projects like the data center in Kenya?
Thanks a lot for the question. So for Map Africa initiative, which now we are actively developing, we talk with Africa at 3 different levels. So for one side, we talk with Pan-African institutions, right, such as NEPAD and other institutions, because we talked about standards. So we want to find a way which is not a simple way in geospatial, because even every country is used historically to have different standards, like geospatial standards projections. So we want to find some unique way, right, to deliver some important, powerful tool over the whole Africa. And so in this case, we really need to think globally and to build something which is really unique, in which can have this impact, which is today, again, possible with AI. Then we also, as to the point of the audience, so we talk right now, so we are building contacts individually with countries, and we really want to deliver important insights which are relevant for every region, every country, which may vary over different periods of time, over different countries, right, in different sectors. And also, so we talk with international organizations because, as I told you, that we are building excellence centers. So we need partnership, collaboration of organizations to help us to train in the best possible way people to understand and to use for the best of humanity the products and the insights we will build.
Thank you, Professor Yuliya. I have an interesting question from one of the audience directed to Mr. Mohammed Soliman. We all know that the Gulf countries are investing heavily in advanced technology, but what about the other Middle East countries, the other countries in the Middle East, the Arab countries and the non-Arab countries in the region? If the Gulf countries are investing in advanced technology, and I mean they are investing billions of dollars inside the Gulf countries and outside the countries for advanced technology, what about the other countries in the region?
I mean, one of the most important parts about what's happening in the UAE and the broader Gulf is the spillover effect of this, right? So when you think about the beginning of the semiconductor industry in East Asia, it started with low value packaging somewhere in Hong Kong, somewhere in Malaysia, and then it had a spillover effect that ended up with Taiwan and Korea dominating the next generation of chip manufacturing. So let's reflect on the Middle East. Of course, you're going to have a spillover effect through a few things. One is basically the talent concentration in the Gulf, and specifically in the UAE. So you're going to have Jordanian engineers, Moroccan engineers, Egyptians, right? So that's number one, right? You have more of a talent who are getting retrained or upskilled because they're working on next generation technologies. The second thing is, and again, this is why I'm very much advocating for a GCC AI stack is the moment you are thinking about integrating, you're expanding your AI stack to more and more countries within the GCC, that's not really a far-fetched idea to have this to be expanded to other countries, right? So this is just on the merit of it. The third thing, you already have countries with interesting value propositions here and there. For example, you have ship design ecosystem in Egypt, which is fascinating, very underreported. You have to applaud what the Moroccans are doing on EV and batteries in terms of production. And you can have other countries are going to be trying to develop their own value proposition in this AI race. So I very much see whatever is taking place here in the Gulf as a positive trend for the broader region that's going to clearly hopefully change the broader discourse, at least within those three things that I just laid out.
Thank you, Mr. Mohammed Soliman. Another question from Mrs. Aisha. The question says, how can the UAE use its tech advances to drive international collaboration and shape global standards?
What advantage? Tech advantage?
The tech advances to drive international collaboration and shape global standards.
I think this is already happening. We see UAE ministers, Minister of AI, for example, as part of the UN kind of structure of AI advisors around the world, shaping the next standardization structure around AI technology. UAE is driving, as I said before, through the sandboxing approaches, the regulatory structures, development and policy making in different venues. Just last week, the ITU announced their board of advisors on emerging technology, and we have a UAE talent as part of that board, advising the General Secretary of the UN on the different directions of developing policy structures around emerging technology. So today, this is something that we build for the world and not just for UAE or for this kind of local experiments. A year ago, we released a report with the World Economic Forum as well that dictates what kind of emerging technology policy structure should exist around different technologies that are being developed, not just AI. A cluster of 200 to 25 kind of technologies has been highlighted. And that report was led by examples and use cases from UAE, from Singapore, and from two other regions in the world, from France and from the United States. So I would say we are a global contender when it comes to providing thought leadership on international collaboration on policy and standards and different structures. Now, the way we develop policies and standards to emerging technology in UAE is different than China, is different than the US. We are trying to be very adaptive to the way development of technology is being constructed and not very restrictive to innovation. So you wouldn't see UAE building a fine structure around technology development. You will see UAE encouraging technology development because we want to be the global hub of those technologies. For example, UAE was one of the first nations who regulated stable coins in the world before the current conversation 2 years ago prior to this, making it a global hub for crypto financing and digital currencies. And we see UAE doing this as well for other type of technologies like AI, making sure as well to provide a stable kind of a global jurisdiction for legal structures around it.
Thank you, Professor Hoda. I have another question from one of the audience. It's a little bit not really optimistic. The question is saying, don't you think that the current investment in AI is a bubble that's gonna explode, just like the investments in cryptocurrency was a bubble that exploded years ago?
I don't believe that the idea of a bubble is bad. So what's a bubble? Bubble is a concentrated capital, concentrated talent, concentrated objective, and a lot of people who believe there's going to be a reward and upside for this sort of new technology, and this is what the bubble back in the early 2000s. And I would argue that the lot of companies that survived the bubble defined the next wave of the internet economy, right? From Amazon to Facebook and every other company from that sort of generation. So there are serious questions about the level of investment right now when it comes to AI, and this is a very serious question, and a lot of folks in the stock market industry have been thinking about it deeply. And I'm not really personally a stock market analysis, so I'm not really going to give you an investment analysis here. But the thesis is very simple. If you believe that AI is infrastructure, that AI is not invisible, AI is very material, that's very much dependent on chips and data centers, that means you have to assume there's going to be a lot of capital that's going to be put in building this infrastructure. If you accept the premise that the next wave of AI is going to be physical AI, the way we are interacting with intelligence, and this could be physical AI robotics, that could be a new personal intelligence, that means we have to invest in compute. We have compute deficit. So we have to put a lot of capital into that. And here where the gap is going to be grown. So you're going to have countries like the UAE, where you have leadership that believes in AI, right? You have the capital to put into AI, and you have the partnerships to weave yourself into an emerging AI order. But then you have a lot of other countries that would be left out. You're also going to have a lot of countries that might not be able to weave themselves into any sort of system, and those are going to be countries that are going to be left behind. Back to the core of the question. Is it a bubble? It could be a bubble, but I don't think that it will be a bubble in the 2000 terms. You're going to have major losses. I don't believe that this is the case, or this is how American AI companies are thinking about it right now.
Thank you, Mr. Mohammed. Your Excellency, back to you, and back to the defense industry in the UAE. Your Excellency, in your view, what lessons from the UAE defense industrial development can be applied to the wider economy?
So I say we must align the policymakers or the visions of the governments, the vision of the leaders, with the energy of the private sector, as well as the creativity of the academia. I think that alignment is really needed at this stage, because it's those triad that you talked about earlier that would make things happen. So that's really number one. And number two, we need to invest wisely, though. Technology and AI, I would say, are developing very quickly nowadays. And we have not yet been to the agentic AI yet. We have not tasted that. We have not been there. But I think the promise is really high. So therefore, to answer your question specifically, we definitely need to invest. So we don't believe it's a bubble, because we could see the benefits. We are advancing defense capabilities. Defense capability today, when incorporated with the right technology, they can be more efficient. They can do things a lot faster, and they can be also very economical. So I think we know these as a facts now. So for that investment is not gonna come back. But we need that cooperations between both the academia and the private sector, so we can walk that walk. Thanks.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Professor Hoda, you come from the academia, as we all know. In your assessment, your evaluation, how do you see the status of the talent that we have in the tech sector right now?
So I'm going to give you a perspective, not just from my academic view, but also from industry view. I spent like 12 years in a sovereign wealth fund. And what I see very competitive in UAE is in the way we developed talent in the past, and currently UAE has heavily invested in high-skilled jobs and high-skilled market by pushing the talent pool to be on the highest spectrum of building and developing R&Ds. For the longer run, I worked very closely as well with the defense industry in UAE and other type of critical industries. What I notice is the power of building integrational industries, like industries that can build better prototypes than what's existing in the market in a record time and deliver it to clients. Our pool is not yet, I think, open to the global markets, and this is where we should unlock opportunities, as His Excellency said, because it's very important to offer opportunities for the talent you're developing, Yuliya, and your space academy, and for the talent we're developing in our R&Ds to building their own ventures and go to market globally. with the commercial products they're developing. I don't see any kind of a challenge for adaptability of a new technology, for the ability to be upskilled into new technologies, to new market. We're one of the highest regions in the world that are absorbing and being exposed to emerging technology, diverse portfolio. We're talking today about building innovations in neurotechnology, spatial technologies, AI, deep tech, restructuring not just compute deficit, but energy deficit. So we are a spectrum of, I would say, talent that is being able to analyze a problem cross-sectorial within the stack of technology all at once. And this is quite unique, because if you go to any other type of industry, you're siloed within a box. You analyze technology within a specific box. But in UAE, you're in a glass box. You're working in your own domain, and at the same time, you have this 360 view of how other subsidiary technologies are being developed. And I think this is a magnifying effect of the spillover effect you talked about, Mohammed, a while ago. So in terms of, I would say, TFP, total factor of productivity in UAE, I see that we're developing a deeper understanding of how we should build white collar jobs and high skilled jobs and put them in the market. But I think we need to focus more into the entrepreneurial stack. And this is what you alluded to, Your Excellency. It's not through this 360 partnership with industry and academia and private sector and also think tanks that are available on the table. We need to make sure that access to finance is available for those talents, access to use cases, access to markets, and as well to the problems that they need to solve, and help them a little bit with the go-to-market kind of opportunities, because then we will see a disruption model that's faster than what we are seeing, for example, in competitive markets globally.
Thank you, Professor Hoda. From the academia to the market, Dr. Yuliya, how do you think the national competition can drive innovation between companies and also inside one country and inside the region here in the Gulf?
Yeah, thanks for bringing this up. I mean, we all know that competition drives innovation. So first, what is the most important? So we must fix our attention and purpose on problems we really need to solve, right? So we find problems which are not solved yet. That's even what we should kind of train, and that's what we did in the Space Academy program. So we really need to train talented people to understand what problems are, and then by competition, that's where the best solution is found, right? And that's where the best solution is driven. And again, in partnership between government and our companies. So we are leading training programs. We're also leading SaaS programs. So we're basically creating basically proposals building on important challenges, and we drive startups to solve those challenges.
Thank you, Dr. Yuliya. Mr. Mohammed Soliman, again to the think tank industry. How do you think that think tanks here in the UAE, in the US, and the region can make this transformation from to the AI-driven economy successful? What is the role actually of the think tanks?
1 billion question. I think here in the region, the job of think tanks should be track to dialogues. Of course, producing research is extremely important, but the big value proposition here is identifying gaps, understanding where are the disagreements. And I think this is where the UAE think tank ecosystem could succeed, and actually I would say it's succeeding. So you bring folks from China, US, and have a track to dialogue on the AI race. This is something that's very intriguing to hear. Or a GCAI dialogue, or a dialogue with the Russians or the Indians. So you basically are making sure that you're bringing the stakeholders internationally. So, and that means that you have to think out of the box on so many of these disagreements, policy options. And the second thing is you have to bring corporates on board. One of the, I think, the big problems of think tanks today is you don't have a STEM talent working on AI policy. I find this extremely interesting, that folks who do not really have a degree in physics or engineering do not really work on these policy options. So you have to bring STEM into those sort of ecosystems, think tank ecosystems. You also have to make sure that you have a tech representative from all these corporations, because you cannot really work on policy without Yuliya at the table telling you how she thinks about space policy and what are the big problems and challenges that she's facing. And that also will make the integration of these sort of recommendations way faster when you have corporate on board. The third thing I would say is also don't think about AI as a silo from other aspects of the think tank space, specifically on defense, and how AI would change other aspects of things that we care about culture, about defense, about business and the economy. So those, I would say, the three top things. So track 2 dialogue, make sure to bring corporates on board, make sure you have tech talent, engineers and physicists who are working on this policy, and 3, make sure that you are also covering the waterfront when it comes to the aspect of AI change on the broader society.
To ask Mohammed a question, one more thing. If I could just follow up on what you said, but also on previous thing you said. You mentioned the GCC twice on your speech. And do you see that the need for the GCC to come together is purely based on infrastructure requirement, or is it innovation and standardizations?
They say geography is destiny, right?
Geography is destiny.
So geography is destiny, and because of the close proximity, that means the integration is way easier. You don't have to lay a cable to Greece. It's an electricity integration that means compute integration on a much more bigger scale. So Eastern Saudi Arabia, UAE, Oman. And on top of that, you also collectively have what I call the latency advantage as a region. Like everyone is 8 hours away. And on top of all of that, you have the energy advantage collectively. So you can build on that from an energy standpoint, energy security standpoint, but also energy as a bottleneck for AI. So the reason why I keep mentioning the GCC, and I find that what the UAE is doing and pioneering is, how can we take that a bit more at scale for the GCC? And the reason why I say that, at some point you're going to keep building, and then you're going to hit the space limit, right? And this is the Singapore story. So how can you proactively think about this sort of like next generation, like what's after that? What after we build multiple gigawatts of compute? Are we going to stop, or are we going to keep building?
And I would like to add to this is, in this region, we have an advantage of having the biggest capital structures around the world, all clustered in a small region. And with capital comes as well the ability to move in momentum, as you said, Mohammed, the ability to move in action as fast as possible, which is not the same in other jurisdictions. And we should take advantage of this. We can be the accelerator, the global accelerator of bringing, I'm not going to silo AI in the conversation, of bringing advanced technologies to market.
Let me say one thing here. So I work in a consulting firm in addition to my work in think tank. And one of the most fascinating stories I have seen is when I started this career 8 years ago, when a tech company comes to me and say, take us globally, the answer meant London. Take us to the UK, take us to London. Since COVID, there's something that has changed in the global economy, therefore the tech map, which is growth is taking place in the Gulf. So when you find an American company, American tech company, an AI lab that wants to go global or fundraise, go global for us, for them means Abu Dhabi, means Dubai, means Doha, means Riyadh. So you see this when it comes to the rounds of funding for OpenAI, Anthropic, XAI. You will always find a sovereign wealth fund from the Gulf that's part of that sort of round. So to your point, this is a very important part of the GCC positioning globally, that they are not only of course, infrastructure buildup is extremely important, but the capital part is extremely important, because you have to front with the belief that there's going to be reward on your investment.
But we also want to build with retention in mind. Our retention strategy is making sure that we are also the innovation structure of the world. We're not just the capital of capital, we're the innovation capital of the world when it comes to advanced tech. And I hope that this is the generational legacy that we're leaving behind for people, not just in UAE, but across the world.
I have a question actually to Your Excellency. what does the government sector really wants from the think tanks in this drive into AI and advanced technology?
Well, I would say one thing that is always a point of discussion and negotiations within the defense and technology when we put them together is the need for standardizations. Let me give you an example of NATO, for example. NATO allies, they came up with the NATO standards they called STANAG, which is the standardization agreement between NATO countries. The NATO country in defense industries endured over decades just because they have the right standards in place. And this is an area, Khamis, this is an area that is not well explored, the use of technology in a standard framework that within defense. That is something that would actually be a big hit, a big thing that we require going forward, not only in the UAE, but with allies, with either GCC countries or even beyond that. I would say standardization of technology within defense is an area that needs to be hit.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I think now it's the time to have the last round of interventions. It's going to be dedicated for the policy recommendation. I would start with you, Professor Hoda.
I think we need a holistic view of what investment in technology and high technology is perceiving. We don't want to be stuck in AI or an AI bubble, because it's not and never been about AI. For UAE and the GCC, it has been about this conglomerate, holistic, multi-portfolio investment in energy and technology and minerals, cross-board infrastructure, so you can get the end result of building a singular technology. And we need that narrative to be a persistent narrative. We don't want to be the AI nation. We want to be advanced tech. We want to be the next generational critical technology nation across the world. So policies across board that not just direct the dialogue in terms of building this technology, but also how do we finance this technology? How do we drive capital investment into entrepreneurial structure, not just government and industrial kind of initiatives, is quite important. Fixing the pipeline of commercialization from IP to licensing to going to global market is important. We have a lot of, I would say, entrepreneurial advantage that we leave on the table when we do international kind of agreements and even business agreement on the table. And UAE has much more to bring on the table. So understanding our arbitrage advantage across border, economic arbitrage, our understanding our new economic competitive advantage is very important, because it's not capital, it's not just labor, it's also the way we develop technology in this region. So these new concepts, bringing them into policy structure is very important, and maybe building more sandboxes around those technologies. Yeah.
So Hoda, Mr. Mohammed.
Two recommendations. One is build the GCC compute stack, a full integrated infrastructure across the GCC. I think this will have a major spillover effect on the GCC. There's going to create an AI influence zone for the GCC collectively, bunch way above the region's weight globally in the region from the East Mediterranean to the Indian Ocean and global South. Second, time to bring ships on shore here in the UAE. It's time to think about elevating the UAE position in the semiconductor ecosystem, from designing to producing. If I have a belief in a nation to do impossible things, I think it's the UAE. You did the space program, you did the nuclear program. I'm 100% sure that if you decided to work on producing ships on shore, I think you will do it, and I think that will be a game changer for the UAE and the broader region.
Thank you, Mr. Mohammed. Dr. Yuliya.
Before concluding, I just want to comment again on this AI bubble in geospatial, again, business. Because in that business, like we all know that most of us use AI daily, right? We all know ChatGPT, LLMs, etc. But maybe not everyone realizes how much they use daily geospatial data, right? I mean, like we all use Google Maps and like Talabat. And basically behind creating those systems, there is AI which is absolutely needed. So just I can explain a bit why, because so like I remember 20 years ago, so of course there were already many satellites. It was still expensive to build, but there were like petabytes of data coming back to ground every day. And scientists and industry did not know what to do with those data. And AI did truly transform that geospatial industry, did truly allow from all this immense data converted into exact insight we need and exact insights that people use daily in their apps, in their mobile apps. And now we are like in a true golden age of new space economy, and it's very exciting era, like age in this economy. So now to conclude what we already all discussed, so which are important things I think. So we have a lot of satellites, right? Again, it's like really new space times where we have a lot of constellations. So now we need to build solutions which are needed, because so when do we think digital transformation becomes successful? It's when we found concrete solution for a concrete problem, right? And when we improved people's lives with those solutions. So for this, we need to build AI solutions and other tech solutions which are trustworthy, right? So we need to prove that we can trust the solution. So to trust the solution, we of course need to use standards and all different data governance aspects, right? So we need to have protocols to prove that solution works. It's a very big topic in today in tech industry, but this topic evolved hugely in the last decade. And so that's why really AI moved from research to business. And again, we really can certainly use it in very important decision-making, basically applications. And third, so especially in that region, and I think everywhere in the life. So if you want to be successful, we need to build strategic collaborations. We need to collaborate, right? Because again, geospatially, we're all in this planet, right? So building proper collaboration, so building systems which are modular, which use standards. Standard is like the same language we speak, right, today. And even if we are born in very different places, and they really allow to interoperate, right? So in my platform, I can adopt other solution and I can help better industry and government, and also people can adopt my solution. So building successful collaboration is a key to success. And so just to finalize that, we will succeed when we will really finally solve meaningful problems, like from water scarcity to logistic optimization to many other industries.
Dr. Yuliya, Your Excellency.
I would say we need to encourage innovation, technological innovations. But as Dr. Yuliya just said, we need solutions that works. We need solutions that are needed initially, and I will add needed and works. So for that sake, I would say we need to align the vision with the private-public creativities, as well as the academia. And with that formula, I think we can get to the target. If there's one more thing I would like to say is digital diplomacy. I think this is a key word that not said enough today, I would say, but it's really important for us to communicate with others. Through digital diplomacy, we can get much more alive within the GCC and beyond the scale of GCC. So that's it.
Okay, thank you, Your Excellency. To that, I would like to say that it was a very fruitful discussion. I enjoyed every minute of it. There was a lot of outcomes and recommendations. One important outcome for me is that it's always a brilliant idea to bring the private, public sector and academia, think tanks together to discuss tech innovation and other aspects also of economy. So to that, I would like to conclude. On behalf of my colleagues at the ECSR and AGDA, I would like to thank you, Your Excellency Dr. Nasser Nuaimi, Dr. Yuliya Tarabalka, Mr. Mohammed Soliman, and Professor Hoda Khzaimi. Thanks for being here. And always remember that the Hili Forum is a window for all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.